Raw vlog recorded in front of a live beverage. Raw and unedited. Raw vlog recorded in front of a live beverage. Raw and unedited. Hey, how's it going, crew? Welcome to Raw Vlog number 52. Raw Vlogs, as so stated in the song, are recorded in front of a live beverage and delivered to you raw and unedited. I'm Alan. I'm from the MTB ALAN channel, which is the companion channel, the air horn channel is the companion channel too. Over there, we have plenty of mountain biking videos, riding videos, that kind of thing. Over here on the air horn channel, we mostly just talk. We have these raw vlogs, which is just me talking, raw and unedited. We also do interviews, which are the Air Horn podcast interviews. And in those interviews, I find a guest from the mountain biking community, bring them on board, we talk about it. And in today's raw vlog 52, our subject matter is facing old fears or facing reoccurring fears and that sort of thing, specifically on the trail and riding. So in channel news, let me pull up my channel news. In channel news, as you probably already know, last week was opening day. Last Friday was opening day at Snow Summit Bike Park here in Southern California. And for me, it was a whole opening weekend. Went up Friday, went back on Sunday, and just had a blast, as well as a whole bunch of experience progression, all kinds of stuff. And that's actually what this upcoming episode is going to be about on the MTB ALAN channel. I am sorry that I didn't put out a video this week. There was just a lot going on in the previous week, and then after the weekend, I had so much good footage from Snow Summit that all I wanted to do was put out an episode on Snow Summit. Wasn't able to get it done in time, and instead of rushing something out and just putting something out in time, I decided to take a week off and really put my efforts into this video and put that out on Monday. And then we'll be back to our regular schedule of Monday video releases. In other news, the 5010 from Santa Cruz just came out. It's a brand new reworking of the 5010, which is their kind of like fun, jump around, do everything bike. It's a little less enduro than the Bronson and less XC than like the Hightower, the Tall Boy, or that sort of thing. Looks like a really fun bike. I don't know if you saw the video that Santa Cruz put out where they had somebody basically riding the bike with their fingers. Pretty awesome, pretty creative, really good stuff. And you already know from last episode how endeared I am to Santa Cruz. In other news, I was trying to just think if there's any other news. I guess I'm going to be up at Snow Summit again this weekend. Not sure which days. I'm not sure if I'll go up one day or 2 days, but I will be up there. So if you're around, you see me on the trail, do say hi. Love meeting all y'all. So last week we talked a little bit about the previous episode of Raw Vlogs, which was episode 50, where we talked about race and ethnicity. And I want to introduce a new segment into Raw Vlogs, which I haven't quite named yet, but I want to use this segment to continue the conversation about race and ethnicity within the mountain biking community. I've had some people respond saying, there's no room for politics or that sort of thing in mountain biking. But I don't know if, I've said this before, but I don't really know if you can consider human rights in and of itself a political issue. But I do think that the solution for these things is political. And I don't want to get into the politics of it, but I do think that this is a dynamic that's real within the mountain biking community. And I think if we're willing to talk about economy, pricing, if we're also willing to talk about getting, for instance, more women into mountain biking, and we're willing to talk about sex and gender, I think we have plenty of brain space within our community to talk about race and ethnicity and how more Black, Indigenous, and people of color, in my opinion, should be in mountain biking, and kind of unpacking that. So I think maybe we'll call this segment Race Runs or something like that. I'm not really sure. But in today's segment that we've yet to name yet, I want to talk about two things. One is a term. There's a term that I find that is a bit of a trigger term, and I think that I want to just kind of like unpack this just a little bit. It's a term that a lot of times a white person will feel offended by, will just kind of respond to it in a way that they feel defensive, and that doesn't necessarily jive with them. And that term is, and now before you like freak out, just hold on, that term is white privilege. I recently posted a story on Instagram where I talked about two articles to read, and they're still in my bio link. If you go to my Instagram, MTB_ALAN, if you go there in my bio link, that'll open up a page that has some links in there. And there's two articles in there, and one of them is specifically about white privilege, but it's even aimed more specifically at how white privilege doesn't have anything to do with, having money or having privileges. Okay, it's not about having privileges, and that sort of thing, and it's just kind of a thing about awareness. So I don't want to unpack that too much for you. I think it'd be better if you just go read the article and then just kind of follow up on your research from there. I will say this, that I think when we use that term, white privilege, we're not trying to call out blame. We're not making it about a shaming thing. It's more about our current system and our current situation in the United States, in our nation. It may not necessarily have anything to do with you as an individual or you particularly, but it is something that we all as a community, as a nation, have played parts in, and that sort of thing. So just educate yourself a little bit more on that. The other thing I wanted to talk about here is just the concept of race. The concept of race is really interesting, and this could be a whole conversation unto itself. But let's start by the baseline of we're all actually the same race. We're all part of the human race, and we have different ethnicities, which, just is coming from different parts of the world, but we're all pretty much from the same gene pool, and we just have different variations within that same gene pool, which give us different physical attributes. And the concept of race in and of itself is to some degree, and maybe to a large degree, racist, because that concept puts out the idea that there are different, like, that a person of the black race, of the white race, of the Indian race, of the whatever race, they're like totally separate things, total separate entities. But if you've ever talked to anybody about their ethnic backgrounds, you will learn that there are a lot of nuances, a lot of complexities, and we're all just as mixed up as the next person. I can think of one person in particular who, if you saw them just standing there, you would think that they were like the whitest person in the world. But in reality, they're half Puerto Rican. But just because you look at them they look a certain way, you think of them as white, but you don't know. So anyway, just kind of wanted to put that out there. So yeah, moving on. Stoke of the week. Stoke of the week this week is, you probably already guessed, Snow Summit opening weekend. I don't know what else I need to say other than that. It's just rad to be getting laps on Party Wave to West Ridge all day, and then starting to eventually hit Miracle Mile and stuff like that. So actually, then that kind of gets us right into facing old fears. So, as many of you probably already know, last year, August, the very beginning of August, practically August, September, what comes before August? July. Almost a year ago now, a little under a year ago, I fractured my ulna and dislocated my lunate, the worst possible wrist injury you can have, up at Snow Summit. And I've been on the long road to recovery, and the wrist and hand are kind of getting there. They're maybe at like 80%, 75% now. So it's been a long time since I rode Snow Summit. So going back up, I had reestablished a lot of my old fears. Like last year before I crashed, before I broke my wrist, I was warming up on the harder trails. I used to, warm up on going green, and then I would do Turtle, and then eventually I would do Party Wave to West Ridge. And, last year I felt confident enough and good enough up there that I could just drop in on Party Wave West Ridge, no problem. And this year, going back on this last Friday, I was trying to get myself to go into Party Wave to West Ridge as a warm-up lap. But I knew that the first jump is 650B. If you don't know about my history with 650B, I will put a link up in the corner, hit that corner link, and you can see that story. But it took me a really, really long time to hit 650B. I rode by it so many times and just had this phobia almost, a fear that almost was the point of a phobia of that jump. And so I didn't want to ride past it. I don't want to ride past that jump ever again. And I knew I was scared of it, and I knew there was a part of my brain that was trying to convince me that it would be fine to just ride past it. But I knew as soon as I did that, I'd be going back to an old fear. And so what I did instead is I did going green first and just felt everything out, felt the bike out. Also, I had a different tire. I had the new Assegai on there that I was still kind of getting used to. So far, it's been a really good tire, but it does hook up in a different way than what the Minion DHF that I was used to. So, did going green, and then the next run was Party Wave to West Ridge, and I just told myself, it's fine, you can go over that jump as, relatively slow and case the crap out of it, and it's going to be fine because that's what you did the very first time you hit it. So I basically had to treat it like it was the very first time I was hitting that jump. I had to do all the techniques that I used before, where I mentally put myself on the other side of the jump, successfully hitting the jump, putting myself there, knowing I had the skills, reassuring myself. I had to do all that stuff again. And I had to do that with quite a few other parts of Party Wave to West Ridge. And there's still some things that I haven't hit yet on that trail. And I haven't even hit Miracle Mile yet, because not that I'm so much scared of it, I just knew that I didn't want to start my first weekend off rough, and I didn't want to overly risk getting injured. But what struck me about this whole experience was how I could go from hitting that jump with total confidence, getting a little bit of style on it, boosting it, fully clearing it, just hitting it consistently all last year after I hit it that first time. I was back where I was at, more than a year ago. And I just find it really interesting that, even if I hadn't injured my wrist, I probably would have been scared to hit that jump again. And I just find it interesting that even though we've had a certain success, we've hit that feature, we've hit that jump a bunch of times, we spend any significant amount of time away from that feature, away from that trail, and all those fears start coming back. And when you come back to that trail, at least for me, I have to kind of work my way through those fears, through those anxieties again. And it's so funny because physically, my body just knew how to hit 650B. I went over it and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. And but But that being said, I went over it. It was fine. But even then, I wasn't immediately back to where I was. The next, like, I don't know how many times it took me going over that jump, but I had to go over it a bunch of times. Actually, be clear on this, that whole first Friday, I never cleared that jump. Some of it was that the lines were really long and I only got like a few runs on Party Wave, but a lot of it was just that I would come into it, there's a step down before it, I would come into it at speed and I would check my brakes. I had this like unreasonable fear to just go off that jump at the correct speed. So I'd hit my brakes a little bit and then I would come up short. And each time I would like not hit the brakes as much. Fortunately though, I was able to go back up that Sunday and then just told myself like, we're going to ride Party Wave to Westridge all day and really get back to a level of comfort with those jumps and specifically 650B. And by the end of the day, I was clearing it. But again, it took a number of runs to do that. So I don't know if your experience is like that with these things. I know like I was actually watching, BCPOV and they had like built this drop and it was kind of sketchy for them and he could not get himself to hit it, and he actually got Yuka to hit it, and Yuka hit it and it was fine, and then it was like okay for him to hit it. What I found really interesting though was the difference in reaction after each one of them hit it. Once Eric hit the drop successfully, he suddenly had all this confidence about hitting that drop. He could just do it. Yuka, on the other hand, was kind of sketched out every time she hit it. And I feel like I'm kind of more like that, where it every time I hit it, like I'm still a little bit sketched out. It doesn't matter if I was successful. And it takes me a whole bunch of times of hitting it and hitting it successfully, a whole bunch of times of being successful at a thing before I feel like I've actually had success at it. Like I don't trust it. Doing it once to me always feels a bit like just luck. I don't feel like it's really something that I am good at, or I don't really feel like I have a success unless I can just do it on command. So I wonder about that, and I look at like how that might maybe slow down my progress a little bit, where I feel like, okay, well, I've hit 650B comfortably for a while. And if actually a good example is hitting Hot Donna. I'd been hitting 650B like comfortably last year for a while, but then was scared to hit Hot Donna. And it's really not that much of a different jump. It's actually it's an easier jump to hit. It's visually kind of interesting to come into, like how you enter into it, but my success on 650B didn't give me that much confidence going into Hot Donna. If you don't know, Hot Donna is it's the wood jump at the very beginning of Miracle Mile. So I think if maybe my personality were a little bit different, I would have hit Hot Donna sooner, because I would have been able to transport my confidence from 650B onto Hot Donna. But for whatever reason, I'm not like that. I don't know what your dynamic is like that. Like, does like one success give you a whole bunch of confidence, or do you need to like kind of stack that up, have a bunch of successes in the bank before like you feel like you can move on to the next level of progression? I think also I'm a little bit knocked back a little bit from the wrist injury last year, because I did feel like I was progressing really quickly, and I think I allowed myself to get a bit cocky. I know I allowed myself to get cocky, overconfident, and that's how that injury happened. So I'm taking it, at the same time that I'm taking it easy, I'm trying to be measured about that progression. So that's really what was on my mind this week, seeing myself kind of come back into Party Wave Westridge, coming back into Snow Summit. I'm super stoked to be back at Snow Summit, and maybe I'll see you up there. That's all I got this week. Hope you dug it. hit the like button. Check to see if you're subscribed. If you're not, hit the subscribe button. You'll be supporting the channel, and I'll be bringing you these raw vlogs and interviews through the Airhorn podcast. And with that, see you next week.